So welcome again to MailChimp Advanced Tools. Today we're going to be talking about merge tags, final welcome and final unsubscribe emails, how to do a MailChimp forward, which I've kind of talked about in some of the other sessions, and then with the time that we have left, I'll go over subscribe forms as much as I can. And so we're going to go ahead and move over to MailChimp now. And so I'm already in a campaign. So the first thing that I want to talk about is merge tags. There are a lot of different kinds of merge tags. We've already seen some of them in past webinars in the footer. And so I want to talk a little bit about what a merge tag is, because it has been confusing for some folks in the past. And so one of the places that you see merge tags is in the footer. So here where it says copyright, and then you'll see where it says it has an asterisk, straight line, current year, straight line asterisk, and the same thing with list company, if not archive page. Those are considered merge tags, and you don't want to alter those. So I've had a couple of people who they see current year. Do you have a question?
Jen, we're not seeing your screen. All we have is the welcome screen right now.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Okay. Apologize for the lack of screen share. So hopefully you're seeing my footer now. So in the footer,
yeah, we can see it now. Thank you.
Thank you for the confirmation. Okay, so in the footer, you'll see right here to the left where it says current year between the straight lines and asterisks. I've had a couple of people who thought that that meant that they were meant to type in the current year, or that they were meant to type in information, and you're not meant to do that. These are called merge tags, and they automatically pull information from elsewhere in MailChimp and put it into those slots when you send out your campaign. So it's dynamic information, right? So current year, it's not always going to be 2019. Eventually it's going to be 2019. So instead of you having to go into your template and tell it what year it is, it automatically grabs the current year. Okay, and so that's what's happening with merge tags is there are labels and information in different places throughout MailChimp that you're able to use these tags to grab that from. Some of the places where they grab information from for merge tags includes like your lists. So if I go over to my lists. Sorry, I thought I had this page queued. If I go over to my lists, there are several different columns, right? There's email address, first name, last name, greeting, salutation, right? That's what merge tags are targeting, are these different labels, and then it uses the information within that label when you're using them. So for example, if I use a first name merge tag, then where I put that merge tag, my partner's first name is going to appear. So for Cheshire Cat, if I put a first name merge tag, it's going to put Cheshire there when I send it out. But if Daisy got it, it's going to put Daisy there instead of Cheshire. Okay, so it changes it for each newsletter that goes out without you having to send individual emails. Hopefully that's understandable. Another place where they grab merge tag information from is from your profile. So if I go up to the top right hand of the screen and go to my profile and then settings, contact information. Okay, this is more places where they're grabbing information from. Okay, so contact name, company, organization, address. This is some of the information that they use to fill in that footer information. And it provides some of the labels if you want to make more customized merge tags. And so that's a little bit of background information about what a merge tag is. And so I'm going to talk about some of the different merge tags that are available to you that might be helpful during your campaign. One thing I wanted to kind of hit before I go into all of this is all the tools that you see today during this is an advanced tool section. And so you don't have to understand or you don't have to use any of these tools in order to use MailChimp successfully. This is more tools for people who want to use them or feel comfortable with MailChimp and feel like this is going to add to the way that they're going to interact with their partners. So don't feel like you have to understand this before you send out your newsletters. This is just extra, basically. Okay. So with merge tags, the first one I'm going to show you is how to use first name and last name. And let me show you this menu. So when you insert a merge tag, you're always going to be inserting it inside of a text box or inside of a button, inside of a picture, like a picture caption holder or something like that, but it always has to be inside of a text box. And so once you've selected your text box, you'll see that there's this menu on the right-hand side because it says merge tags. And if you click on it, you get this nice long list of different options, okay? And these aren't even all of the options, and I'm not going to go through all of them today because otherwise we'd probably have to have a session that's just on merge tags. If you're interested in exploring some of those other options in your own time, you'll see where it says Open Cheat Sheet. If you click on that, it's going to take you over to this web page here. And you'll see as I start scrolling down that there's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of merge tags. Right, so they're quite powerful and you can do a lot with them. And one of the common things that I see people use merge tags for is to personalize the introduction of their email. So instead of just going right into the body of a message, they want it to say, Dear Cheshire Cat, Dear Daisy Duck, or hello, good morning, good evening, something along those lines. So if you want to personalize it with your partner's first name, all you do is type whatever you want your greeting to be. So if I want it to be dear, okay, so I would type in dear, and then go over to the merge tag. And scroll down to first name. Okay, and then it automatically places the first name merge tag in there for you, so you don't have to remember how to type it out. Now remember, we don't want to go in here and type somebody's first name. Okay, that'll mess up MailChimp. You just want to leave it like this, and then when you send it out, it's automatically going to plug the partner's first name in. And so I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like. When I go into preview and test, you're going to be able to see an example of what it looks like when the merge tag is working. But in order for it to work, you have to hit save and close first. If you don't hit save and close, when you go to preview and test, it's not going to show you your merge tag. Okay? So I have to hit save and close, and now I can go to preview and test and enter preview mode. Also to see that the merge tag is working, so here it just says test first name. In order to see, like put an example first name in there, I have to turn this button on the right side on. So if I click on this, now it gives you a live example of what it looks like for a first name to actually be in there, Dear Bill. Okay, and again, it'll put whatever partner the email is going to, that's the first name that's going to appear there when you send it out. Okay. So that's the first name one. Some people like to have the first name and last name, and so you would just go in here, go back up to the merge tag menu, and insert last name. So now you have Dear first and last name. Anytime that you insert a merge tag into your email, I encourage you to do a save and close and then preview it and make sure that the formatting is what you think it's going to be. Sometimes it can have some unique results. And so make sure that you are double checking that before you send them out. Some of the other merge tags that you see, so greeting and salutation, those two merge tags are only going to show up if you've merged your MailChimp with TNT Connect. If you merge those two or you sync those two accounts together, you might have some extra options here that other people don't have. If in TNT you've set up your greetings and salutations to be the way that you want them to be, this is one area where you can use them. So for example, in TNT Connect, all of my salutations say Dear and then their first names. So it might be Bill and Jan, or William and Janet, or the Jetson family, or something along those lines. So if you've set that up, these are good merge tags that you can use in MailChimp as well.
Jen, we've got a couple questions here.
Sure.
Rick wants to know, when setting up the email, there is the option of adding a merge tag like the first name in the subject line, but I've not gotten it to work. And then second one, should you put a space between merge fields or does it do it automatically?
Let's check. Let me answer the second one first. So you're asking if I need to put a space between these. And so I'm going to check that. Okay, so yeah, so this one would need a space because they combine the two names together. So if I go back in, add my space, save and close. Okay, So yeah, I will go ahead and put the space between the merge tags. And again, this is why you want to go into the preview mode and double check what the formatting does to make sure that it's doing what you think it's doing. The first question about putting merge tags into the subject line, I've never actually tried that before, so I'm not sure why or how that works. I don't know if you saw that somewhere, if you just tried it. Let me try to play with it a little bit, and I'll have to get back to you with more information about that. Any other questions right now? Okay. So the next merge tag that I want to take a look at is social sharing. Just scroll down here. Social sharing. There's several different options in here. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. The first I want to talk about is the Facebook like button. And I want to talk about this because I mentioned it during our tips and tricks webinar when we were talking about reports. I didn't want to do that. I'm just going to put it right here at the top. So the Facebook like button, let me show you what it's going to look like. Because it just looks like the little thumbs up sign for Facebook like. And so what this does is it doesn't actually post, if somebody clicks the like button, it doesn't post your newsletter to their timeline. It doesn't post it anywhere. All it does is it lets everybody in Facebook know on their activity feed, right? In that top upper right-hand corner of Facebook where there's the scrolling, so-and-so liked this, so-and-so commented on this, it would show up in that activity feed, but it's not going to show up anywhere else. Where you would see this is during the tips and tricks webinar, I talked about, if you post your newsletter to Facebook and somebody likes it, that like isn't going to show up in your reports. This is the like that does show up in your reports. So if somebody clicks this like button, that's when you'll start seeing the Facebook like number going up. And so it's just a way for, there's not a lot of benefit to having it there. It's just a way for people to interact with your newsletter. So, if you have a creative use for it, there might be some out there, but it's just an option for letting people respond in some way if they enjoyed reading it. So that's the Facebook like one. Go back in here. Okay, so some of the other ones, continuing with Facebook, you see that there's a Facebook profile and recent wall posts, and then there's a Facebook profile. I don't really encourage people to use this Facebook profile and recent wall posts. What that merge tag does is it shows, and I'll show you an example of the Facebook profile. And so it shows your profile picture, a little information about you, but then it also includes your most recent Facebook posts, which sounds like it might be an okay thing, except if you share pictures. So if you share pictures or videos or any kind of visual content in your Facebook posts, when you use that merge tag in your MailChimp, it's going to pull up, it's going to keep your captions, but it's not going to show the pictures. So if you made some silly sentence about something that you ate, well, that sentence might not make sense without being able to see the picture. And so if you have top comments in your MailChimp newsletter with no images, it might just become an awkward thing. And so if you're going to do that, I encourage you to be very careful about what your Facebook posts are so that it makes sense when people are looking at it. So again, I kind of encourage people just to avoid that one. If you want to have your Facebook information in there, I would use this Facebook profile. And probably putting it at the top isn't the best place. If you're going to use these things, probably put them somewhere down here at the bottom, because it's just extra information about you. It's not about your Wycliffe ministry or about what's happening with you and your family. It's just kind of an extra little thing. And let me show you what it looks like real quick. If my computer will load. Okay, so you'll see it has my profile picture from Facebook. It has how many friends I have. I'm not sure why they think that's important. And then about me. And so if you're going to do this, you need to go into the About Me portion of Facebook and actually fill out that profile. And then once you do that, that will show up here. Because just having your profile picture with your number of friends and the words about me is not add anything. And so do make sure that you set that up well if you're going to include it. This friend me button does allow people to add you as a friend on Facebook. And so that's kind of a fun feature. Now, if you add the comments, they're just going to come up underneath this friend me button. And again, it's usually not very helpful to do that. But so that's the Facebook profile. One other thing to keep in mind is if you use the Facebook profile, if it's a husband and wife couple putting out the Facebooks, the MailChimp updates is you're not going to be able to do both spouses' Facebook profile pages through this merge tag. This merge tag is only going to grab the information from the account that you've integrated. So last week we went to integrations and I showed you how to integrate Facebook into your MailChimp. Whichever account you integrated, that's the one that they're going to grab from this merge tag. If you want to link to both husband and wife's MailChimp Facebook webpage, Facebook timelines, excuse me, English is failing me today. You want to use the social follow button. Okay, so if you move your social follow over here, remember it was just this bar right here. This is where you're able to put both Facebooks. So if that's what you're trying to do, I encourage you to stick with that method instead of the merge tag version. And so another one is called social share. I can find it. There it is. Social share links. Okay, so it says MC top share. And again, this is something that I would put towards the end of your newsletter as opposed to the beginning. But it gives a list of the different social media icons. And so it'll have Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Google+, and I think it's Instapaper. So these aren't necessarily social media platforms that you yourself use or have accounts for, but your partners can actually click on these and post them to their accounts. And so it's really an advocacy tool. So if you have a partner who is very active in advocating for you in social media, this might be something that you want to point out to them. So you can place it, excuse me. So you can place this, so you can place this in your newsletter and let your advocates know that it's there. And then when they click on it, when they click on this, they would be invited to share your newsletter to their Facebook feed. They click on this to their Twitter feed and so forth and so on. So again, this is more of an advocate tool. And again, if it's something that you decide to use, if you want it to be effective, you're going to have to teach those partners who are most likely to do it, that is there, and how to use it well. Because typically these kind of small buttons, if you just place it at the bottom of your email and hope people see them and click on them, usually they're not engaged with. People don't even notice that they're there. So if you decide to use it, be a little bit intentional about getting your partners involved with helping you get the word out. Okay, so that's social share. The one question that I get quite a bit is what happens with the people, like say I posted on Facebook and I've used the merge tag first name. Well, everybody who opens my newsletter might not be in my contact list. So what appears there? Does it just say first name, or what happens? And so in order to have some control over that, MailChimp has a section where you can put in default labels so that it'll automatically fill in with those defaults when there isn't information there. So for example, if you use first name and last name, but you don't have last names for all the people in your contact list, you're kind of telling MailChimp, this is what I want you to do when that happens. Okay, and so to set those defaults, we need to go specifically to our list. Okay, and if you have more than one list, you would have to set this separately for each list. Okay, so these settings are specific to whichever list you're working with. So we're going to go to our list, use the drop-down menu, and go to Settings, and then go to List Fields and Merge Tags. And so this is where all your merge tags, not all your merge tags, this is where a lot of your merge tags are in MailChimp, and places where you can actually edit how they appear. And so, for example, for the first name, you'll see that there's this default merge tag value, and you can fill it in. And so when I read up about this, it said something about dear valued customer, because I'm reading about for e-commerce, right? But you would want to put something like dear friends, dear partners, dear, however you want to fill that out. But this would be the default section, okay? So that if there's no contact information for this person who's reading it, it's going to use this default tag value instead of this, right? So a question?
No, I just got back online and it had my mic open. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So looking at the merge tags that are here, you'll also see that you can edit some of this information. And so if you can make these different tabs anything you want, like where it says salutation, I could hypothetically put Saturn there and go type asterisk straight line Saturn straight line asterisk, and it would put my salutation there. Okay, so these can literally be anything you want. It helps for it to be something that makes sense, so you don't have to come back to this page to remember what you made the tag every time you want to use it. But there have been a couple of people that I've worked with who have wanted to make their own unique tags. I don't remember what department it was that had reached out, but they wanted to be able to have merge tags for where the person interacted with, where they met them. So I met you at this location at this time, and they wanted that to change for each person who was receiving the newsletter. So we were able to use merge tags to set that up for them so that it would work without her having to do it one email at a time. And so this is a way, there's lots that you can do with merge tags. If you get stuck while working with them, go ahead and reach out and I can help you with that. If you're looking for pre-existing merge tags, it's going to be on this all merge tags cheat sheet, and this will be part of the FAQ, so you'll have easy access to that. But there's quite a bit you can do with that. So that's sort of the basics of merge tags. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the final welcome form and the final unsubscribe form. So first I want to talk about what those two things are. The final welcome form is an email that you can set up MailChimp to send out when somebody subscribes to your list for the first time. So if you add the person to the contact list, they won't receive this. The only time they'll receive the final welcome email is if they subscribe themselves. So if you set up, there's a MailChimp subscribe app. If somebody were to use that to subscribe to your list, they would receive this final welcome email. If somebody sent them a forward and they subscribed to that forward, then they would receive this email if you use the subscribe form. So there's some different reasons that people would receive the final welcome email if you turn it on, but it's only if they in some way are subscribing themselves as opposed to you subscribing on their behalf, okay, if that makes sense. So the final welcome email is you've clicked the subscribe button and now we're sending you an email to officially welcome you to the list. Okay, so it's, yes, you subscribe to this, welcome. Thank you for joining, or thank you for wanting further information. Thank you for praying with us. However you want to word that, you have some control over what that says. But let's go ahead and take a look at that. And again, it's going to be specific for your list. So I'm going to go to my list screen. And then again, we're going to use this down arrow and go to settings. Nope, not settings, sorry. We're going to go to sign up forms. Okay, and you'll see that there's 4 different ways to set up forms. There's the form builder, embedded forms, subscriber pop-up, and form integrations. The form builder is typically the one that most people are going to want to use. This is one where it's going to give you a URL. It's going to let you set up your final welcome, your unsubscribe forms, which I'll talk about that one in a little bit. The embedded forms are going to be if are specifically for subscribe forms. So you've created a form for people to add themselves to your list. And the embedded form is if you have a blog or a website or something along those lines, and instead of somebody receiving an email, it's actually a page on your web page, or it's an actual form embedded into the screen. So they just see it when the web browser loads. And that's what the embedded form is for. The subscriber pop-up, I encourage you to be a little bit careful with these. These are those screens where, say you go to, I don't know, Amazon.com, and before you exit the screen, there's a pop-up that comes up and says, hey, do you want to do this before you leave? Or, subscribe to our newsletter before you leave our website. That's what a subscriber pop-up does. Okay, it's going to pop up over the screen the person is either opening or trying to close or trying to interact with. Typically, I'm not sure about MailChimp, I haven't looked at it. Typically, you have some control over when the pop-up occurs. And so if you're going to use a pop-up, I would try to set it so that it doesn't do it every single time somebody comes to your website. It's likely people are going to get really frustrated if you do that. If you think about how much you enjoy having pop-ups come up on top of your screen, consider that before you use this specific tool. Form integrations is referring to two different sites that I'm not familiar with. It works with Wufoo and Squarespace, I believe, are the two sites. And I'm not at all familiar with those. MailChimp does have really great helps, though. If you're interested in learning more about those, they have a place to click for more information, and you can click on those to do that. So before we go into actually building the form, I want to take us back to settings real quick. Okay, settings, and there's a list name and defaults. So the first thing I want to show you is this form setting. There's a few different options here. The first is enable double opt-in. I don't personally use this. I know that there are some people who really like it. And this is for when somebody subscribes to your newsletter. Again, they're subscribing themselves, so they've subscribed to your newsletter. You would send them an email saying, are you sure you want to subscribe? I don't really like that. There are people who do. If that's something that you think is important, you can check that box, and that's what will start to happen when people subscribe themselves to your newsletter. Enter reCAPTCHA is those things that are making sure you're not a robot, right? Check this box to show that you're not a robot. Click on all the pictures that have a picture of a car, different things like that. If you check that box, it's going to ask people to do one of those before they finish subscribing to your newsletter. Again, a lot of these things are more applicable to e-commerce than they really are to what we're using them for, but the options do exist. Enable GDPR fields has to do with Europe. I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on with that. I think Michelle has been doing some research to try to figure out a little bit more about what's going on there. But again, MailChimp has a lot of their own helps. So if that's something that you need to know about, I encourage you to do go into MailChimp's site and search their helps. And they have a lot of information about that that's going on right now. Scrolling down a little bit, you'll see this send a final welcome email. And so right now it's off. So right now if somebody subscribes, they would not receive this final welcome email. I have to actually check the box for them to start receiving it. And then you'll see the same thing down here for the unsubscribe confirmations to subscribers. Now the unsubscribe confirmation to me is the most important out of all the ones that I'm going to show you today. And the reason I think it's important is because what this email is when a partner unsubscribes, it sends them an email that basically says, letting them know that they've unsubscribed. And why that can be important is if a partner forwards your email to somebody else without using the Facebook forward form. So they're in Gmail and they click on the forward button in Gmail and send your newsletter to somebody else, and that other person unsubscribes or hits the unsubscribe button. Well, if they didn't unsubscribe themselves, they unsubscribe the sending partner. And if you turn on this send unsubscribe confirmation to subscribers, then the person who was unsubscribed will get an email letting them know that it happened and give them a chance to resubscribe. Okay, so this can be a really helpful thing to have turned on. I've had a number of people reach out to me because somebody unsubscribed that didn't mean to. And so this is the way to help curtail some of that process. Okay. So once you have those set, we're going to go back over to the forms themselves. So I'm going to just click right here for sign up forms. Okay. And I'm going to click select for the form builder. Okay. And so right here, you'll see that there's this menu that says sign up form. We're going to start with the final welcome email. You'll see there's lots and lots of options here. Okay, we're just going to go over the 3 though. So here's the final welcome email. And this is another place that you can turn it on. Okay, so I just turned it back on. There's this other option that I didn't talk about, which is let subscribers pick email format, plain text or HTML. The reason that you might want to turn this on is if you have some partners who are in locations who don't have good internet, or maybe it costs them extra money to download images or something along those lines. And so maybe they just want a plain text version of your email. If somebody signs up for the plain text version, what that means is that when they receive your newsletter, it's not going to include all the pictures and fancy formatting. It's just going to pull out the text, and that's all they're going to see of your newsletter. Okay, so that's what that means. If that's something that you think some people might want as they're subscribing, then you would just check this box, and then they would be able to make that decision. It's going to seem a little bit like I'm spending more time on the final welcome email than I am on the final subscribe form or the subscribe forms. And the reason for that is when I make changes, or when you make changes in one of those forms, it makes changes automatically across all 3. So for example, if I end up giving this form a black background, all 3 of my forms are going to have a black background. If I change the font to Georgia here, it's going to change it in all 3 of my forms. And so by doing it in one place, it does it in all 3 places. And so that's why we're really just focusing on one form, because by changing the one, it changes the others. So hopefully that makes sense. If you decide that you'd rather change one of the others instead of the final welcome, you would go through the exact same steps that I'm going to show you here. Okay, so this build it, design it, translate it. If I went to the unsubscribe form first, or to the subscribe or unsubscribe form before this one, then it would still be these exact same steps. So what I show you here, you can use on any of the forms that are available in MailChimp. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind as we're going along here. The first thing that we need to look at, though, are these first 3 fields, from, reply to, and subject. And notice the asterisks and the straight lines. Okay, that's an indication that these are merge tags. Because they're merge tags, you don't want to change them. Okay, so don't change these merge tags, leave those alone. But you can change the subscribe count, where it says subscription confirmed. So if you want to personalize that a little bit, you could say, thank you for joining our Wycliffe Ministry update list, or something along those lines. If you decide you want to personalize it a little bit, you can. Just make sure that you only change the text that is outside of the asterisk. Okay, don't change this information at all. Just leave it alone. Okay. Scrolling down, you can hypothetically just leave the email like this. So if you look at this and you think, I'm okay with people receiving it just as it is, that's okay. You can just leave it alone, and this is what people will receive. Okay. So this would obviously fill in with the partner's information. Okay. So if we do want to make changes, we would first go to design it. So build it is this phase that we're already on. So there's not a whole lot that we could change in here. You can change where it says your subscription to our list has been confirmed. If you want this to say, up here we said we could personalize this a little bit. You can also personalize it a little bit down here. And so I just left-clicked on it, and you would highlight this and change the wording to whatever you want it to say, and then save and close. Okay. And then, so the next thing that we can do is go to design it. And you'll see up here where it says background with all the E's. The E's are telling you is this light gray color that you see in the background. And so if I want to change this to black, okay, I just clicked on the color, but the color for black is all of these arrows. And maybe you want to use one of the branded colors, the blue or the red. You would type in the color code from the branded guidelines, and that would give you the color of the background. Now, one thing to notice is if you choose a dark background, I can no longer see the name of my list at the top anymore. So that means I need to change the font color. Okay, so I'll come down here and click Edit, and then highlight this and just change it to white. Okay, and then save and close. And now you can see it again. Okay, so just be aware of that if you decide to change it to a dark background. The next thing that you can do is go to header. And so header is referring to this Wycliffe Partners portion. You see they put a rectangle around the area that you're about to change. Now you can't change the color of this because it would kind of look awkward if you just change the color right around the words, but you can change the margin. And so the margin bottom and margin top is referring to the amount of space between the top of the screen and the words and between the words and the white portion. So for whatever reason you want the words closer to the white portion, you would just lower this number. Okay, and it moved down closer to the white. Okay, so you can play around with these a little bit if you want these to be different. Doesn't make a huge change. The outer wrapper is where you can start changing this color. You see there's a rectangle around the top part and the bottom part, so it's going to give it a frame if I change that color. So if I click in here and I want to change it to one of the branded colors, you have to have the pound sign, so don't forget the pound sign. Okay, and then type in the code for the color. And you'll see it change the bottom, the top, and the bottom. So when I do this, I like there to be space over the Wycliffe Partners, just because I think it looks nicer. And so I go back to my header and I increase this. Okay, and now you'll see there's some space over top of Wycliffe Partners. Okay, and so just play around with it and make sure it looks the way you want it to. So the next thing that you can go to, so right now we've been working on the page. You can also look at the body of the email. The foreground is referring to this white area here. I encourage you to not change it. Okay, it's really best practices to leave this white. I know some people like to do light pink and light yellow and that kind of thing. But even when it's a light color, it makes this area more difficult to read. And so it really is best if you leave it white. You can also go to default text. And so this is the only change that I encourage people to make is to change this over to the branded font, so Georgia or Verdana, and then change this to the branded black as opposed to this dark gray color. Apologize for all the coughing today. Okay, and so now my text is black. I guess I should have all zeros. Okay, so just change this text to black instead of dark gray. And then link style is going to refer to this link right here. And again, we encourage you to use branded colors. I don't have the list in front of me right now, but you might change that to a different branded dark blue or green or something along those lines. Once you have all that set, you can go over to Monkey Rewards. The Monkey Rewards is referring to this rectangle at the bottom. So if you're happy with it being a gray rectangle, you can leave it as it is. Or you can scroll to the top and click here and choose a different one. So all of these are acceptable options. Okay, and then whatever you choose will appear at the bottom. You do have to have one of them, so make sure that you choose one that you like. And you'll notice that there isn't a save button. That made me really nervous the first time I did this because I spent a whole bunch of time making this look the way I wanted and then couldn't figure out how to save it. It automatically saves it. You just travel away from the screen and it retains your saves or your changes, which still makes me anxious sometimes, but that's the way they do it. So then once you have, and that's all there is to the final welcome email. So then the next email, and you're going to see these changes move across the forms. So you cannot give the final welcome email a blue background and the final unsubscribe form a blue background. They have to be the same. So if one's red, they're all going to be red. If one's blue, they're all going to be blue. So one thing that you want to do is once you've set, especially if you're going to use all three of these forms, if you make a change to one of them, go and check the other ones to make sure that they all three appear okay still. I had changed something to white in one of my forms, and when I went and looked at a different form, I suddenly couldn't see it because it changed it in an inconvenient place. Okay, so do make sure that you're going back and checking all three of those if you're going to use all three. So let's switch over to the final unsubscribe form. And we do that just from this the same menu here. Okay, so this is unsubscribe form. Okay. And so you have an unsubscribe URL, but you'll see most of this is already set up. Okay, so you don't have to make any changes here. Now, you see enter your email address to unsubscribe from this list. So this is actually sending it to them before they finish unsubscribing. So one thing that you could do is you could actually change this message to indicate to people, if this is not, if I didn't send this to you, or if somebody forwarded this email to you and you don't want to receive these anymore, please do not use the unsubscribe. Please let your friend know that you don't want to receive them anymore, or something along those lines. That wording isn't the best, okay? But you can include a message here that's letting people know you're going to unsubscribe the person who originally received it, not if you forwarded it. Does that make sense? So this could be a place to sort of warn people about what's going to happen. Some people like to put something here about, we're sorry to see you go. If you would rather receive our updates in a different format, please let us know. Maybe they're unsubscribing because they want to receive a paper copy instead. So just putting a note here saying that please reach out to us and let us know that you want to do that. And so there's lots of different messages that you can put here. Okay, but you can do that just by clicking on it and changing the wording that's there. I believe you can also change the button, but I'm not seeing. I think there's a place to change the button, but I don't currently see it. There it is. So if you click on forms, you can change the button a little bit. So you can change the color of the button. You can change what the label is if you want to say so, if you want to have a different font, okay, different text color. So there's different things that you can do with the button as well. Again, just double check it and make sure it looks okay before you go on. And so that's basically what you need to know about the final welcome email and the final unsubscribe email. There's not a whole lot to it. There's just those few settings that you're able to change. So you'll notice that this looks a little bit squished together, so I might want to play with this a little bit more again. Okay, so just keep kind of playing with them until they each look the way that you want them to look, and then check your previous ones to make sure those changes look good in each form. The last kind of form that we wanted to talk about were subscribe forms. But before I do that, because that's a little bit of a longer process, I wanted to show you the forwarding form. I've mentioned that several times in some of our other webinars. And so the way I've talked about it so far is we really don't want partners to forward our email from their Gmail or their Yahoo account. For the reasons I've kind of been talking about today, is if they forward it to somebody, that person hits the unsubscribe link, they're unsubscribing your partner instead of themselves. Okay, and so sort of the best practice that MailChimp has come up with to deal with that situation is they actually have a forward to a friend form and a forward to a friend email. Okay, and so if I go into the forward to a friend, I think I want the form. Forward to a friend form, okay, you'll see forward our email to a friend. You're forwarding a link to this email campaign, so the email that they were looking at before they clicked on forward to a friend. And you don't need to do anything with these merge tags. You just leave the merge tags alone. And again, you can make the same changes that we've made on all those other forms, right? If you want to change the background, the header, the fonts, the colors. But again, if you change them here, they're going to change the final welcome email. It's going to change the final unsubscribe email. They're all going to look the same. And the reason they do that is because you want to have a branded look for yourself. And so we want all of your communications to kind of have the same look to them. So when a partner sees something that comes from you, they instantly know by the colors and by the formatting that this is a message from you. So that's kind of MailChimp's way of reinforcing that idea that you need everything to have kind of that same look and feel to it. Okay. So the way that you use this forward to a friend form is from your campaign. So maybe you want to put this in your, this is probably something good to put in a template as opposed to individual campaigns, because it's probably something that you're going to want to have in all of your forms or in all of your updates. And there's two ways that you can do it. You can either include a button, which is how I'm going to show you, or you can do linked text. And I'll show you how to do both of those actually. So you might want to type something here like, and you might need to teach your partners about this. If you have partners who regularly advocate for you by sharing your updates with other people, you might want to send them a short email or have a short phone call but let them know that this feature is in your update so that they'll start using it and understand why it's important to use this as opposed to you forwarding from Gmail or Yahoo itself. Okay. So instead of, I think it's still web address. So within the web address, you want to link to web address, but then the URL is actually a merge tag. Okay, so you're going to go asterisk, straight up and down line, or do make sure they're all capital letters, forward, asterisk. Okay, so you want it to appear that way, and then save it. And you can still change everything. Maybe you want to stretch across the screen, maybe you want it to be a certain color, etc. Still go ahead and do all those settings, and then save and close. And then I think I can show you what it does. And so now when somebody clicks on this forward this email to a friend button, that didn't work. I promise that's worked in the past. I wonder if it's because it's a template. I'll play with that a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's what you do. I think it might be messing with me because this is something that hasn't been sent out yet. And so obviously you can't forward email to a friend that has never been sent. And so I suspect that that's what's going on. I'll double check that, and if it's not true, I'll put it into the FAQs, but I'm about 98% positive that it's because I'm trying to do it with a template instead of with an email.
Yeah. Jen, I'll confirm that it is because you're in a template.
Okay. So when you typically click on that from a newsletter, they're going to get a form that looks just like this, but without the merge tags. So the merge tags are going to be filled in with the appropriate information. And so they're going to put in they're going to type in their friend's name, their friend's email address, their own full name, their email address, and then a personal message, and then send email. And that send email is going to forward them a copy of your campaign. Okay. So again, this is just the best practice to forward emails in MailChimp to prevent people from getting accidentally unsubscribed when that's not what they want to do. Okay. So that's forwarding. And then the last thing is subscribe forms. And so we're going to go just back to the same gray menu, drop down menu here. Maybe. There we go. And we're going to go to sign up form. And the first thing that you'll notice is that you now have a URL. And so the URL is something that you can post to Facebook. It's something you can put on Twitter. You can send it in an email. However you want to send it, but it allows people to have the chance to sign themselves up for your newsletter. Okay, you'll see that there's also a QR code, which is this little guy here that people can scan with their phone. There are some people who have put this on physical copies of their newsletters, or they've put it into Instagram, or there's lots of things that you can do with it. And then when people scan it with their phone, they can now subscribe to your newsletter on their device. Okay, so it's kind of a fun little tool. And again, you have the exact same options. You'll see that the formatting is already done. It has the font that I chose earlier. It has the colors that I've chosen earlier. So a lot of it's already set up. But you can do more with the subscribe form than you can with the other ones. And so some of that is the fields. And so if I click on, one is click to add a message. And so if you want your subscribe form to have a little message that says, please sign up to receive our prayer updates. Please sign up to receive our monthly newsletters or something like that. You can just put a little message about what they're signing up for or what they can expect once they've signed up. And then you can actually click on some of these different fields. The computer's moving really slow, but it should bring up a menu on the right side once it's done. I don't know why it's going so slow. There we go. Okay. So when you click on a field, you should get this Add a Field menu and Field Settings menu. So the field settings is whatever field is currently peach. So right now my email address is a peach color, and that means this field settings are going to apply to that field. So I can change the label. I highly recommend that you don't go changing your labels. As you change labels, it's also going to change merge tag fields. So you're going to be making changes in multiple places in MailChimp by changing this one area. So I just kind of encourage you to leave the label alone unless you absolutely need it to be something else. Same thing with the field tag. We don't need to mess with that one. Visible and hidden, you're not going to be able to make these changes with the email address, but email address is a required field by MailChimp because MailChimp is an email program. So it doesn't make sense for you not to collect an email address when you're using an email program, okay? But if I were to go down to like first name, if I didn't want to require first name, then I would leave this unchecked. I typically encourage people to go ahead and require the first and the last name fields because if you get somebody who signs up and they only give you their email address, a lot of people's email addresses don't include their name. Right, so I have an email address that is finished work in progress with no vowels. If I signed up with that email address and didn't include my first or last name, you would have no idea who I was. And so requiring the first and last name because you have all the information that you need.
I have a question here from Christina. Can you use the sign-up form URL on a tablet? She can't use the MailChimp app because she has a Kindle Fire, but if she uses the link in the same way, will that work? And can multiple people use it on one tablet?
How are you using the link? What are you using the link for, I guess, is what I would ask back. Like, are you adding it into an email? Are you adding it into, how are you hoping to use it?
She's hoping that people could use it to sign up at an event, having a tablet on the table.
Okay, so there's actually, do you say you're not able to use the app? Because there's an app called MailChimp. You can't use that?
She has a Kindle Fire, which doesn't use the apps the same way.
Oh. I've not seen this successfully used in that way. Potentially you could, right? You could use the URL and go to, so if you grab the URL and went to a website, or use it as a website, you can hypothetically do it. Let me just show you what happens. Okay, so confirm humanity, subscribe to list. Okay, and so the thing about using this in that way is that it's not going to send you to a new blank form once you subscribed. Okay, and so I'm going to unsubscribe.
So she would have to have a new tab for every person that signed up.
Exactly. So if you do a control copy on that text, you have it saved, and so it's easy to reset the form, right? So every time somebody fills it up, you just need to go up to this URL, hit control, paste, and it'll give you a new blank form. So if you're okay with doing that, that is a possibility. The nice part about doing that, even though it might be a little bit of a headache, is that you won't have to try to decipher people's handwriting, right? Which can be really frustrating. And so it might be a benefit to doing it that way if you think that won't cause too many problems to reset it each time. Okay. So going back to this, setting those as required fields. If you synced, I think. If you sync your account with TNT, you're probably going to have some of these extra fields. You'll see I have several extra fields. If they have this light blue color around them, and if you look really closely, it says hidden. So even though I can see them, they're not going to actually appear. Which you saw that, right? When I went to my form, those fields aren't here. Okay, but you can also get rid of them altogether. So if you click on one of these fields and then hit delete over here on the right, but you always have to type it into. Okay, so then it completely removes the field altogether. And like I wouldn't want this group designation. I'm not sure why this is a field. I don't want this in my form. And so I would delete this out. Okay, so you can either delete them or you can make them invisible depending on what you're doing or what your preference is. So see that it's hidden, so it's not going to actually appear in one of my forms. And then you can also add different fields. So if you go up here to this add a field option, you'll see that there's several different things that you can include, including a physical address. So if you're trying to get people's mailing addresses, that's information that you can include. I wouldn't make that one required because some people are maybe willing to share their email address, but not their mailing address. And so if you're going to include that, let it be an optional field. It's just a recommendation. You can obviously do something else if you want, but those are some of the things that you can do. So, and if I click on it, it just automatically drops it over into my form. Okay, so to add the address right here. If I click and hold, I can also reorder these. So I can drag it up. If I want last name to be first instead of first name. Okay, so you can change the order of some of this stuff around. But that's kind of the ins and outs of making a subscribe form. There's not a whole lot to it. Setting this up the first time, kind of like an email template, right? It'll take a little bit of time the first time you set it up, but then once you've got it, it's good to go for the rest of however often you use it. The only other thing that I want to walk through is the app that I kind of mentioned in passing. That was MailChimp Subscribe. And so MailChimp Subscribe is an app that is available for tablet devices. It's not available for your phone, or even for your laptop. It's only for tablets. So if you think of like iPad, Android tablets, Windows tablets, they all have this app. It's a free app, again, called MailChimp Subscribe, and you get it just from your app store. Okay, if you search for it, you'll find it real easy. And let me share my iPad screen with you, and then you can kind of see what it looks like. Give me just a second to get that set up.
While you're setting that up, I'm going to go ahead and just ask if anybody else has questions before we move on, since we're changing topics a little bit.
I don't want to give too much space. If you have questions, go ahead and ask, and I will pause in my talking. But so you'll see up here in the top row, it's MC Subscribe. This is what the icon looks like. Okay. Again, you can just get that out of whatever your app store is. When you first go into this, you're going to need to log into MailChimp. So you're connecting MailChimp Subscribe to your MailChimp account, and it'll walk you through the steps. It's a pretty easy process. And then to create a new, so this is the subscribe form. To create a new subscribe form, you'll see this plus sign up here at the top. If you tap on that, it'll start you with a new form. I'm just going to ask you which list that you want to do. I'm just going to do test list. I'm not going to connect this to my real list. This is if you have groups. If you want people to automatically be subscribed to your groups as they're signing up, you can set that up here. If it's something that you want to do later instead, you can just go ahead and tap on finish. Okay. And so there's several different changes that you can make to this. The first is where it says test list form 15. You can change that to be whatever you want. So you go to this gear sign and click rename, and then you can call it whatever you want. So you could call it, my Wycliffe Partnership Team Updates, or whatever kind of name you want to give it, and then click save, and it'll change that part of the name down here. Now it will not change where it says test list in the light gray font. That's the name of the list that they're getting added to. So do be mindful of that if you're adding them to a list, that your list isn't named something strange, okay? Because it is going to be made public. Once you have that the way you want it, we're going to move over here to edit. Okay, and so the first thing is this test list, which is the title. Okay, and you can change that to, our prayer updates, Wycliffe prayer. My title is Life in Translation, and so I might want this to say that. And so to do that, I would go to this little edit, the little pencil tool, and then just type it in. Okay, so and then just click away, and it'll keep those changes. Oops, tap away, and it'll keep your changes. Now we want to change this to a branded font, so we'd go to this TT, and that'll give you the list of the fonts, which I'm going to change it to Georgia, and then click or tap away, and then you can also change the color. Now, if you have a dark background, you're going to want to leave it as white, but if you do something that ends up giving you a really light background, you might want to change this over to black or some other dark color. Okay, so once you've gotten that, we want to change this subline because obviously they're not going to receive 50% off their banana co-swag by signing up. So again, you're going to want to change the font to Georgia by clicking on the double T's. Okay, and edit what it says. I'm not going to edit the text, but click on the pencil to edit what it says. You also delete what's there and then insert the text that you want. So maybe the tagline says, use a sign-up form to sign up for our monthly prayer updates or something along those lines. Okay, and then once you have that, I'm going to click on this area itself that has all the different fields. And you'll see the 3 different asterisks. The 3 asterisks are indicating that that is a required field. So in order to submit this form, they have to give me their email address. They have to give me their first name. They have to give me their last name. You'll see that these fields are a little bit different than what I set up in MailChimp, but that's because this is in a different account. Okay, the one that you saw me set up was on the account that I created specifically for this webinar. This is a test list that's in my personal account, so that's why the fields, there's some discrepancy in the fields. Once you have that field highlighted, then you again can use this TT to change it to Georgia. So we want it to all be the same font, right? We don't want different fonts all over our form. And then you want to click on these 3 lines here. Okay, and that's just going to give you some more options. So this is where you could turn off or on the required. If it's dimmed out like this, the field's not required. If it's bright red, it is required. The reason that there isn't one next to the email address is because MailChimp requires it. You can't turn off the required portion for email. Now, I don't want these other fields to show up in my subscribe form, so the way I'm going to make them disappear is by clicking on this eye. If the eye is dark, it means that that field is visible. If it's grayed out, it means it's not. Okay, so I'm just clicking on those to turn off those fields. And you can also reorder the fields. So if you tap on this reorder at the top right-hand corner, okay, you see those the 3 lines that appear next to my different fields. If you tap and hold, you can now move it up and down. Okay. If you tap and hold and you find that it moves like this, it's because you didn't get your finger on top of those 3 lines and you just need to try again. Okay, so you have to tap right on those 3 lines in order to move it up, move it into a different place. Okay. Once you're done with all of that, you can click done and then click close, which is on the left-hand side. Here. And so now it reflects the changes that I just made. And next thing is the subscribe me button. And so this is something that we'll want to change to a branded color as well. Okay, so you can change it to, I don't have all the branded colors in front of me, but I'm going to change it to Georgia. Okay, and you can change what it says. You can change it to sign up now, subscribe without the me, whatever you want that to say. And then once you finish changing the button, you want to click this checkbox in the upper left-hand corner. It took me a while to figure that out. I was really frustrated when I first tried to figure this out. You can change the background color, okay? And so that you can do that from the screen. You'll see the purple right here. If I click on that, I can change it to either a branded color or black. Again, if this is light, if this is a light colored background, you want darker font. If it's a dark background, you want white font. You can also put an image into the background if you'd rather have an image instead of a color by using the icon that's in this menu. Okay. And so again, you want it to be kind of a professional image, so be careful. You don't want this to be really noisy. Okay, I did not pick a good image to illustrate this, but if you're going to use an image in the background, just be careful with what you choose. You don't want people to get blinded by the images that you've chosen. This button right here with the 3 sliders on it, you can change the opacity. And so I have a black background, so as I move that down, you're seeing more of the black and less of the picture. Okay, and the blur will make you not be able to see the picture. It actually blurs the image itself. Okay, so you'll see how the castle is really blurry in the background. So those are some different options you can play with. And then the eye will just make the image visible or invisible. Okay. And then these 3 are going to move this image and this around. So first, let's change this. So if you click on the envelope, it lets you pick your own image to go there. And so you have to get the little dancing dashes, and then you go to the upper right-hand corner and click on the image icon. And this is, you know, you can add an image of you and your family. You can add something that's relevant to your Wycliffe ministry. Whatever you want to put there, as long as it's appropriate. You know, we don't want to put a silly comic or something that's unprofessional there. So be wise about your image choice. And then once you've chosen your image, you click this arrow. Okay, and then you're back to your background. Now these are moving it around. So right now, this is showing that the sign up field is on the right of the center of the screen. So if I click this, it's going to move everything to the center. Okay, and if I click here, it's going to move the sign up form to the left. Okay, and so you just choose whichever one you think looks the best, and then you click done. Okay, now to use the subscribe form, you're going to use the show button. When I click on show, it gives you the blank form, and now people can actually use your form to sign up. Okay, so it's not my email though. I'm just going to put in some fake stuff. There you go. Okay. And then subscribe me. Okay, so it lets the person know that they're subscribed, and then it gives you the next blank form. So you don't have to do anything with this one. As soon as they hit subscribe, you get a new blank form for the next person. And then when you're done, you hit this little lock button at the top. And then if you go to subs, which is down here at the bottom right, you'll be able to see the people who signed up. Okay, and then you can export and collect and sync with your MailChimp list and all that kind of thing. And that's all there is to the subscribe form. Let's see if I can stop sharing. Okay. So that's basically what we plan to cover today. So we went over several of the different merge tags. We went over the final welcome form, a final unsubscribe form, subscribe forms themselves, and then we did how to forward and how to use MailChimp subscribe. So there's also subscribing in there. But if you have any questions about those, feel free to reach out. I'll try to do the best I can to help. I'm getting ready to go out of town, so if you message me, you might not get a response for a while. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat now, or you have some time for more questions. Again, this session was recorded, so we'll get that out to you later today along with some FAQs. There's a survey link that just went into the chat. If you wouldn't mind taking just a couple minutes to fill that out. We'll also include that with when we send out the FAQ email. So if you don't catch it now, you'll get it again then. Yeah, so let me know if you have any other questions.
Jen, there was a question about needing to be connected to the internet when using the subscribe forms.
Yeah. No, you don't have to be connected while you're filling them out. Just connect to get them synced. So if you're in a place that doesn't have internet, you can still use it and it'll sync up later. Janet, we did record all the sessions. So MailChimp Tips and Tricks is recorded along with the intro session and the campaign session. When you go to the link for today's recording, you'll go to a YouTube channel, and all of the MailChimp webinars are going to be on that YouTube channel. Okay. Is there any other questions? It does store the information when you're connected, yeah. So anything that it saves it onto your device until you're in a place where you can connect to the internet. Yeah.
Yep, just a reminder to do the survey link, which is, Doug linked it up a little bit earlier before the